Alrighty. Hello everyone, welcome to a new video on Geo.fs, and this one is going to be about how to use Autopilot++ and the Flight Management Computer, which are two add-ons to Geo.fs. I will have information on how to download them and implement them in the description, how to use those to make flying more fun and more easy and just a more enjoyable experience overall. Alright. In order for this video to be useful, it's important to know how to make a flight plan that can be used by the flight management computer. So if you don't know how to do that, go ahead and check out. I have a video specifically about that on my channel. Go ahead and check that out, and that should give you all the information you need to know, just like prerequisites for this video. Alright, for this video, I already have a flight plan loaded in. Today, we're going to be flying from Boston to Philadelphia. So right now we are, as you can see over here, we are on the runway at Boston Logan Airport. So Autopilot++, as the name implies, is kind of an extension of the autopilot that GeoFS has, like the stock autopilot. So Autopilot++ is going to be down here. And so basically how it works is you can enable with these switches over here when you want the altitude to be constant, when you want the heading to be constant, or when you want the speed to be constant. And you can also disable one or two of them while also keeping another one, which is very useful. It also has this thing over here, V/S, that's for vertical speed. So for example, if you're at 18,000 feet and you want to get to 31,000 feet, right? But you don't want to just get there super duper quick, you kind of want it to be a gradual ascent to 31,000 feet. Well, then you'd set your vertical speed to something like 1,000 feet. So that's going to be your aircraft is going to ascend at 1,000 feet per minute, which is relatively low. Usually when you're ascending or descending, you're usually going to be around anywhere from 1,000 to 3,000 for your vertical speed, depending on how quickly or how slowly you'd like to ascend or descend. The cool thing is, you don't always need to be completely on top of those things during the actual flight, because those are things that are done by the flight management computer. So the Autopilot++ and the flight management computer go hand in hand to make the flying much more enjoyable and a much less difficult task with lots of room for error. Alright, so here in the flight management computer itself, basically how it manages your vertical speed. So this is vertical speed goes into something called VNAV, or vertical navigation, and the cool thing is the flight management computer can kind of computate that by itself. So what it does basically is say, okay, we have this altitude 5,000, we have this altitude 7,000, and it takes, okay, how far between those two waypoints? So as we can see, it's going to be 4.6 nautical miles between Fox and Bro. And so basically what it'll do is it'll pick a vertical speed where you'll get to 7,000 at about the time that you get to that waypoint. And so it makes the flight a lot more smooth. And the nice thing is it does it automatically. So all you have to do is enter in these altitudes and it will try and get you there in a succinct manner. Alright, let's go ahead and try this out. So before you take off, the first thing you always want to do is just go through your flight plan one more time, make sure there aren't any massive discrepancies in your plan. So for example, if you know that you're doing a relatively short flight, you don't want any massive distances, right? So let's just go through here. Looks about right. We don't have anything about over 60, and because, you know, Boston and Philadelphia are certainly not cross-country, that just makes sure that we are indeed going to be lined up with a runway when we're going in. That is very important. Alright, before you take off, the first thing you want to do to make sure that everything will work correctly is go ahead and select your first waypoint in your flight plan. So, as you can see, ours is Fox, and I don't know if you saw, but down here, the latitude and longitude for this waypoint got moved in for the latitude and longitude. So that means when we enable this thing right here, the plane will automatically turn towards that direction. And when we get to Bro, this will become the check mark. It does it automatically. Remember, you don't have to select it. Once you do the first one, it'll do it automatically, and it'll change those waypoints, and you'll turn towards your next waypoint, and all automatically. Alright, that will take care of what's called our LNAV, or our lateral navigation. So next, here we have a VNAV tab on our flight management computer. We want to go here. First thing we want to do is put in our cruising altitude. This just helps it automate everything. So we go to route and let's check what we selected as our cruising altitude. So it looks like we chose 31,000. So we go back to VNav and put in 31,000, and then we can go ahead and select VNav so that that will be enabled, and then speed control. Now speed control is a subset of VNav. Basically what it will do is change your speed so that it is pretty much the most efficient speed you can go at your specific vertical speed, so basically your tilt, and then also, you know, if you're going in for a descent, you're going to want to be slowed down. If you're going for approach, you're going to want to slow down. It'll do that for you, and so it just helps to automate the entire process, which is very nice. All right, so after we have VNav, that looks good, we'll go to arrival, I believe is what this means. I'm not completely sure, to be honest, but what you can do here is put in your aerial field elevation. I tend to do it just in case, by chance, it helps the FMC with its automation. I haven't really seen anything bad happen if I don't enter it, but basically what you do is you enter it in the field elevation of where you're landing. And so I checked earlier, Philadelphia's airport field elevation is around 40 feet, so just go ahead and put 40 there. And go back here, you can say automatically calculate your top of descent. So that is how the computer is going to know when it should start its descent, right? Now, thankfully for us, in case that doesn't work, we have the altitude selections here, and so that hopefully the VNav will do it automatically. So this is more just of a failsafe. All right. So to this point, it looks like we have everything set up for the flight. We have the VNav done. We have this done. And we have our, we checked our entire route, and we have selected our first waypoint. And if you look down here, you'll see I didn't enter this 5,000, right? Once I enabled VNav, it just put in the altitude for our first waypoint. So one thing we want to check is our first waypoint, how far away is it from where we are now? So about 6 nautical miles, which means that once we take off, we're probably going to get there in around like 1.5 to 2 minutes. I'm not just say that based off doing this for a while, which means that we're going to want to enable our autopilot pretty early in the flight. And we're definitely going to want to do it under 5,000 feet, right? Because that's why that's there. That means that we want to be at around 5,000 feet when we get to this waypoint, if not at it. All right, so let's go ahead and do it. Close out of the FMC. We don't need to enable any of this stuff yet. We're going to wait till we're in the air. So I found, and this is just from doing this for a while, so if this helps you, then feel free to use it on your own. There are 2 different ways to move the aircraft. You know, you can use your mouse like this. So if you do this, this would be, it would go down, this is up, this is left, this is right. I know this doesn't look right for down, but when you're flying the aircraft, just think about it like my mouse is moving this like the back end. So if you were to move it up, the plane would tilt down. So just think about it that way. And then of course with the arrow keys, which is how most people know how to use it. I found that when I'm taking off, it's best to use the mouse. And then once I get up in the air and I have to go and enable things, I always have to switch to the arrow keys before I do that, or else when I go over here, it's going to completely turn the aircraft to the left and probably end up crashing. So before you go over and mess with anything on the left side, make sure that you have pressed K. So the way that you switch between those is you press M on your keyboard to use your mouse, or K on your keyboard to use your arrow keys. So I have M selected right now, and right now I'm paused, but I think I have everything ready to start my flight. Let's do that, and we will go ahead and start. So full throttle, and as you can see, I'm kind of using my mouse right here to guide it. Alrighty, so I'm now in the air, and as I said, we're going to want to switch over pretty quick, so I'd say get about this much elevation. And now before I go over and mess with the autopilot, I'm going to press K to make sure that when I move my mouse it doesn't alter anything. You just got to make sure your pitch is right before you do that, and then you'll see I'll come over here and I'll press, make sure I engage the autopilot, and then I will enable the latitude and the altitude. Alright, so as you can see, we are en route to Fox, and it appears as if our vertical speed is very high, 4,500, which is probably more than we would want it to be. But thankfully this isn't a real flight. But as you can see here, so we just switched waypoints, and you see how now we're making deeper left turn, and now we are en route to Barrow, and we're going to be there in 5 nautical miles, and hopefully we'll be at around 7,000 feet. So right now we're at 4,000. So as I said, when you're ascending, really you want to worry about, like, don't be over this when you get to that waypoint. So if we're at 4,000 at the last one, even though it said 5,000, that's all right. So for Bro, we want to be under 7,000. As you can see, our vertical speed is automatically changing as the computer adjusts. So as you can see, we just hit another waypoint. So now we're making a right turn. And I'll zoom out. I probably added more waypoints to this flight plan than I usually would, simply just so I could demonstrate how to use the flight management computer. Alright, so as you guys can see, I forgot to select my speed, and so what will you see, we're at about 300 knots right now, and what the VNav thinks I should be at is at around 250 knots, which is probably a good idea, because the slower I'm going, the less that the vertical speed has to be, because it's going to take longer to get to my next waypoint. So that's why probably should have been going slower, and I wouldn't have needed, the computer wouldn't have needed to made it go, what was it, like 4,500 feet per minute. Let's go ahead and enable speed, and you'll see we will automatically start decreasing down to 250 knots. Alright, so we just hit another waypoint. I'm just going to call that brown. And as you can see, we have about 45 miles to get to 31,000 feet. And as you can see, our vertical speed has been automatically adjusted so that we will have a nice ascent to our cruising altitude. And so now, just kind of sit and watch things play out. The nice thing is with Autopilot, you know, now you can move your screen around. Mine's pretty slow right now. But now you can move everything around and get nice views and not have to worry about having your flight go way off the rail. So as you can see, the VNav speed just increased to 295 without me touching it. It's doing it automatically. And if we look at our navigation over here, we can see that we have successfully departed from Boston. And I believe my flight plan, what it does is it's going to kind of take us like this around here and then over to Philadelphia, which is over in this direction. Alright, so another thing that is added with these extensions is down here. You see it tells us how far we are till our destination. So it says we have about 400 nautical miles to go until our destination. Nautical mile is, I believe, a little bit longer than a mile. Not exactly sure to what extent, but I do know that it's a little bit bigger. But that's just so you can gauge if you're where you should be compared to how close you are to your destination. And as you can see right now, by this reading, we are at about 17,000 feet, increasing to 31,000. And let's see how far we have to go. We have about 30 more nautical miles until we get to our next waypoint, and we want to be at around 31,000 feet. And then we'll have a good distance where we're on at our cruising altitude, and yep. Alright, so as you can see by that turn we just made, we just hit our waypoint. As we predicted, we are at 31,000 feet, and our vertical speed is now 0 because we are at a constant altitude. So if we check what the FMC has been doing, right, so now we're on to the next waypoint, this one right here, 30 miles till we get there, and we're going to be at 31,000 feet all the way until we get to Wosit, with which we will descend 6,000 feet to Slat. So basically what happened was, if you see the VNav here, you see that our phase has automatically turned to cruise. Before it was on climb. I don't know if you may have seen that. When we start descending, it will change to descent. And as I said, this is automatic. You don't need to do any of this. And down here, you may notice that this changed to 0.78. No, that is not 0.78 knots. It is just changed to Mach. So Mach 0.78. So you can go over here and just select KIS to see what speed. So it's 289. It'll probably change back to Mach in a second. But when you're cruising, that's probably about the speed that you'll be going. And it's a nice it's a nice speed. It gets you to your destination pretty quick. And yeah, so now we ride out our cruising altitude and we can enjoy some nice views. Alright, so one quick thing to note right here. It looks like we have about 45 more nautical miles to go until we will start our descent into Philadelphia. If you're interested to see how long it's going to take for you to get to your destination or for you to get to your next waypoint, you can go ahead and check out this progress tab right here. So as you can see, it says we have our destination in about 30 minutes and tells you your ETA. And then your next waypoint, so it says about 7 miles. So, and that is about 1 minute. So it'll only take us about 1 minute to cover those 7 miles. And yeah, so that's just a little thing, just for checking out, should you feel the need to. Alright, everyone. So, as you can see, we are about 6.5 nautical miles from reaching Wosit, which is where we're going to start our descent into Philly. So, like the ascent, the climb, our descent is going to be pretty much automated by all of the data that we put in pre-flight, which is very nice. So, we should see a seamless transition from cruise to descent. So let's see if that happens. I will go ahead and, so it just switched. You'll see we're turning. And probably quite soon you will see this vertical speed right here will turn negative, which means that we will be starting our descent into Philadelphia. Alright guys, so as you can see, our vertical speed has automatically turned negative, which means that we have started our descent. And as you can see, our altitude automatically changed to 25,000, which is what we had entered for our next waypoint. So that all looks good. So as we saw before, where in this VNAV tab, the climb setting changed to cruise, we should see it now at descent. And as you can see, there we go. It's in the descent phase, so everything looks on track. And just a reminder, if any of this stuff isn't working, it is probably because you entered in something wrong at with your pre-flight, like you entered in the wrong information into the flight management computer in the first place. So just make sure you check that before making up your mind that something is wrong with the computer itself. Alright guys, so as you can see, our altitude is now set for 18,000. As has been with this whole flight, that has been an automated change by the computer based off what we entered in the very beginning. So as we can see, we're en route to this waypoint right here. So about in 10 nautical miles, we want to be at 18,000 feet. Right now, the vertical speed has been set for descending at 2,200 feet per minute, and that will continue to change as the computer makes the necessary calculations. Alright guys, so it looks like I'm having some trouble with the camera, so I'm just going to switch to the cockpit cam for the rest of the flight. Should not take away from the experience at all. So as you guys might notice by looking over to the left here at the navigation panel, we are actually, this is the airport right here, we are very close. You may also notice we are still very high in the air. Now that's alright, because actually what we're going to be doing is doing something along the lines of this. So as you can see, the runways run kind of west-southwest to east-south, or sorry, east-northeast. And so we need to be lined up going east-northeast in order to land. So we're gonna have to kind of loop around. Also, as you guys may have noticed, our speed has automatically decreased. And this is just part of the process of slowing down as we approach our destination by the vertical navigation. So as we can see here, we are approaching Kiel, K-Y-I-L-L, in about 4 nautical miles. And then we're going to make a massive right turn so that we can then turn around again to the left and get lined up with the runway. Right now, we are coming down to 13,000 feet, and we are starting our final descent into Philadelphia. So using this camera, we can actually see that's the airport right there. And so we're kind of circling around to eventually land coming this way along the river. So you can see about 40 nautical miles to go. We're going to continue on this straightaway for about 14 more nautical miles, and then we will make another massive left turn. Sorry, another massive turn, this time to the left, and that will get us eventually lined up with our runway going 75 degrees, which is about to the east-northeast. Alright, so as we just started making another little descent there, we can see our speed automatically decreased to 250. So we are continuing that slowing process up until we will land. I will warn you guys, for some reason my FPS is very low right now, so it could be a bit of a shaky landing just based off of the frame rate. It might be a little bit difficult. And I think we are about to start our big left turn. You should see it happen any moment now. This is quite the turn we are on right here, but as you can see, those two lights right there is the airport, and we are pretty much in line with the runways, so we are in very good shape. I do think that it is important to note that as we get lower and lower, you will be able to rely more and more off of your own, gauging of what altitude you should be at, how fast you are going, rather than the machine itself. So that's why it's always nice. Always feel free to disable one of these. Just make sure if you're disabling the latitude and longitude, make sure you've clicked K on your keyboard right before that happens, or else it will turn wherever your mouse is. And if your mouse is way over here on the left, it's gonna turn the plane way to the left. So just make sure that that is enabled. Alright, so it is at this point that we should probably start making our final preparations for landing, which means, you know, getting the flaps ready, getting the brakes ready, and all that. So for brakes, press semicolon, and then flaps, let's just go ahead and go straight to flaps 3, because we're coming in pretty quick. And I'm going to go ahead and turn off the speed control on the VNav right now, just so I can kind of gauge where I want to be at. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my speed down to 210 for now. And we'll go ahead and do 3 more sets of flaps. And I'm pretty sure I can see our runway straight ahead. It is about this point I have a pretty good idea of how far away I am from the runway. I'm going to go ahead and disable the altitude for autopilot and go ahead and I will take control of that. So here I will disable it, make sure I have K selected. So now I can use the arrow keys to kind of guide myself down. Alright, so it won't let you use the mouse until you have everything deselected, but I'd like to stay on my current heading, simply because I kind of like where it has me at. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and go flaps full, and gear down, so the gear is coming down. Should probably slow down a little more, I'll go down to 180. So we are slowing down, and we are right on line with the runway, which looks great. So just gotta guide it in. As you can see, we still have latitude and longitude selected over here on our autopilot. And as you can see, we are straight on line and looking fantastic. Alright, so at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and disable everything. Okay, so press K again, I'm gonna disable everything. And now I'm going to press N. It might do a weird maneuver. Just warning you. And there it goes. That's the one thing that's very hard to control. But once you got it, you've got control of it for good, I'd say. So we're going to go ahead and maneuver ourselves down and realign ourselves. Because we are all good to go. As I said, my frame rate is extremely low at the moment, so this landing might not be the greatest. The second I land, I'm going to want to press B, which will help slow us down when we touch down. You want to try and keep your speed in the 150 to 170 range. It looks like I'm very high, which is not where I want to be. Once again, this video is less about about my landing skills and more about teaching you guys how to use the flight management computer. But it wouldn't hurt to have a decent landing. And spoilers are activated. Extremely hard landing. I don't really care though, I had a terrible frame rate. We'll take it. I think you guys got all the information you needed to make your flying more fun, more easy, more enjoyable in Geo.fs. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a thumbs up or subscribe. I'll have more videos like this coming soon, other tutorials, and just, you know, some cool flights. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to continuing this content, and thanks for watching.